This is me, Brittany Boles, back again live on Facebook and on Instagram with chapter 3 of my book, Finding Starlight. Finding Starlight is the story of my life as told through a past life regression session in a really fantastical kind of way. So just quick disclaimers, as I always do. This is my memory of events. So if you are offended, too bad, leave it in the comments, tell me about it in person, whatever. And otherwise, I'm really just here to share what happened in my life. This is the third chapter, so we're about to be on really getting into the thick of the story tonight. So this chapter is called Blood and Mermaids, and unlike other nights, I forgot to print it out today, so I am reading it off of a screen over here rather than these printed pages that I have been using. So just kind of buying time here at the beginning of the video. Anyway, let's get into it. Finding Starlight by me, Brittany Boles, chapter 3, Blood and Mermaids. I smell you in the ocean, and I see you in the sky. I feel you in my heart. I hear you in my cry. Chapter 3, Blood and Mermaids. Into a dimly lit room, thick with tension, we arrived. I was on edge and very aware of the cloud and Katrina's body next to mine. I wanted to wake up. You do not need to experience anything, she reminded me. Just watch. See what your subconscious is trying to show you. I closed my eyes, trying to blink away my fear. When I opened them, my vision was juxtaposed. I was seeing through the eyes of a young child, barely a toddler. She, or I, was in a dingy hotel room, confused, trying to take stock of the situation. I tried to hold on to Katrina's words, telling myself, I don't have to live this. I willed myself back into a more comfortable reality. But the tug of the memory was too strong, and I became the little girl, my young self. Sitting on a bed, wrapped in my very favorite blanket, I was alone and content when suddenly the quiet was shattered by screams of outrage. Slam through the door they burst, all noise and flailing. My mom was running from an angry man, shouting at him over her shoulder as he advanced on her, menacing and furious. His fist moved in a blur, smashing her face and spraying blood everywhere. She was still yelling. With both hands, he shoved her onto the bed, straddled her, and shook her shoulders. I was scared. I backed away from them, huddling in the corner, and noticed something sticky on my hand. Mom's blood had gotten all over my blanket. I wiped some of it off onto the bed and closed my eyes, waiting for the screaming to stop. I knew it was over when someone turned on the lights. Mom opened the fridge, handed the man a can of beer, and they both lit cigarettes. I was still on the bed, clutching my blanket. They didn't seem to notice. Eventually, they finished their beers and lit another cigarette. And that is when my mom finally looked over at me. Oh shit, she said. We need to throw that thing out. My mom yanked the dirty, bloody blanket from me and walked outside, around the back of the building to the garbage area. I followed and grabbed at her, begging for my blankie, but she was too tall and too fast. She opened the lid of a dumpster and threw it in. I was inconsolable, beside myself with grief. Another day, I found myself sitting on a hot sidewalk, a little older than before. The heat was making waves on the street, blurring the buildings on either side. Everyone was grouchy and sweating, and it smelled like pee and vomit. I was outside a store waiting for my mom. A man leaned on the wall between the door and the ice machine, smoking a cigarette and drinking from a paper bag. I saw gum on the ground and thought about tasting it, but decided not to because it looked a little black. The door opened, letting out a blast of cold air. My mom came over to me with a brown bag in one hand and an orange popsicle in the other. "Here you go, Brittany," she said, handing me the push pop. It was my absolute favorite treat. I had to push the stick up a little at a time to eat it, and at the end, you could drink all of the melty stuff. Immediately, I opened it and began to eat. She took my hand, picking me up off the curb, and started walking really fast. Too fast for me to keep up. "Hey," I said, "wait, I can't," I started to say, trying to get a better grip on my popsicle and keep from falling down at the same time. I stumbled, accidentally pushing the stick all the way up and through the cardboard, and the whole popsicle flopped onto the sidewalk. "No!" I cried, looking down at the quickly growing orange puddle. I tried to pick up what was left, but my mom stopped me. "You can't eat that," she said. "The ground is disgusting. Look, it's almost all melted anyway. It's too fucking hot out here." My eyes filled up with tears, and I said, "Can I have another one, please?" "No," she said, glancing at the bag in her hands. "Mommy can't go back in there because I just wrote them a bad check. We need to go." For a brief moment, I was back on the cloud. It was thin and high, up in the air as it carried me to another memory. Beneath us was a sparkling blue sea, a blanket of shimmering water in which my young self was boogie boarding. Before I could protest, I dropped into the experience again. With joyful determination, I set my gaze upon the waves and paddled beyond them. Past the break, the surfers called this spot. It was the best place to catch a ride. When I was in position, I turned and moved with an oncoming wave, lifting with the water and sailing on the foamy crest. A bump threw me off my board and underneath the water. I swam up, like I had learned to do if I wiped out. My head banged into something solid. I tried pushing against it, but it was too heavy, holding me under. A surfboard, I realized, is on top of me. A strong undercurrent took hold of me. The riptide, it was called. It felt like I was stuck inside an underwater river, swift and strong, pulling me out to sea. Soon, waves ceased their crashing, and noise faded away. I was far beyond the break now. The water was calm and deep. My leash had broken and my board was gone. I felt peaceful. Warm blue water surrounded me, and I felt no need to struggle or swim. When the river finally stopped dragging me, I floated in stillness, eyes wide open to my surroundings. A boulder, covered in softly swaying seagrass, was not far beneath me. Seaweed looked bright green in its natural habitat. The sand was whitish brown, decorated with squiggles and ridges. I could just stay here forever, I thought. Maybe I'll turn into a mermaid and swim away. As if in answer to my thought, a shimmering blue-green figure swam to me from behind the boulder. Shining scales covered a mermaid tail beneath his bare chest and flowing auburn hair. His big brown eyes and high round cheekbones were vaguely familiar. Bubbles of air from his mouth floated, popped gently in my face, tickled my cheeks. In a wide circle he swam, flicking his tail. He approached me, then reversed direction with a backflip, tail overhead. He was playing, and I was absolutely delighted. When I smiled at him, he cocked his head to the side and stood up on the tip of his tail in the middle of the water. He seemed to ask me something, but his lips weren't moving, and I couldn't understand. I just wanted him to keep swim dancing. I spun myself around in a circle, imitating him, and then pointed in his direction. Now you. He came back to me and reached for my hand. I gladly accepted, and he took the other one as well, so that we were face to face. Using his tail like the point of a spinning top, he propelled us into a frenzy funnel of ripples. My hair streamed straight up like his. When we slowed, he let go of my hand and pointed to the surface, where sunshine was filtering through the blue water. Then he tilted his head to the side and raised an eyebrow, like he was asking, "Do you want to go back up there?" He was still holding my right hand, which I tugged while shaking my head. No, I don't want to go back up. I thought to him, I like it down here. I'm happy here. Oh, please, let me stay. His face grew serious. It's up to you, I felt, rather than heard him say. A choice. He was giving me a choice. I didn't know what to do. It felt bigger than me, out of my reach. It was too old and complicated a thought for me to consider. I'm just a kid, I thought back to him. Taking that as an answer, he towed me to the surface. Faster and faster he swam, building momentum, and when we were close, he launched me up and out of the water. A lifeguard who had been walking along the beach saw the splash. His face contorted with shock, and he took off running into the waves. Strong strokes carried him quickly to my floating, limp, and breathless form. My eyes were closed, and my face was serene. He heaved me onto his red rescue float and secured me with one arm, using the other one in both legs to bring me into shore. As soon as he could stand, he lifted me and ran onto the beach. Gently, he laid me down in the sand and kneeled by my side. His face leaned close to mine, and he placed both hands on my chest, pushing down hard. Hot, salty water shot out of my mouth. I coughed and sputtered, trying to sit up, but I couldn't. He turned me onto my side and patted my back as I vomited more ocean water. As soon as I could, I wiped my eyes and looked around, dazed. People were crowding the lifeguard and me, looking concerned. I didn't see anyone I recognized. Thanks, merman, I thought, glancing back toward the water, wondering who he was and if I would ever see him again. In another moment, the crowd parted to let my wild-eyed mom through. She grabbed both of my shoulders to stare into my face like she was checking to make sure it was really me. She looked frantic. She bent down, brushed wet hair from my forehead, and kissed me, more softly than I can ever remember. She pulled me into a tight hug, and I could feel her heart beating fast and hard inside her chest. I had the strangest feeling that she was saying goodbye. Looking into her eyes, I heard or felt her drift away from me. Again and again, her mind played the words, "I can't take care of her anymore." Her eyes became distant, vacant, and her heart slowed its wild pounding. She pulled away from me then, not just physically, but in a way that felt incredibly final. I reached for her hand and looked lovingly at her face. It was far away and so sad. Don't worry, Mom, I thought. I'll take good care of you from now on. And that concludes Chapter 3, Blood and Mermaids, of Finding Starlight by me, Brittany Boles. Chapter 4, A Tale of Two Dads, premieres next week around the same time on Wednesday. Thank you so much for watching. I cannot wait to get published. If you know Reese Witherspoon, give her a call. Tell her I've been trying to get a hold of her. And thank you so much for your love and support. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments, and I may address them in a commentary video one of these days. Until then, see you later.